Hello, everyone. How is it going? Today we have with us Dave Davies, CEO, Beanstalk Internet Marketing. Hello, Dave. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well, man. Staying home, staying safe.
That's all we can ask, isn't it?
Yep. Dave, I really want to, dive directly into SEO and start discussing with you. But before that, it would be great if you could introduce yourself and the work you're doing at your agency.
Perfect. My name's Dave Davies, as I guess our audience now knows. We focus on organic search and paid search. Specifically, my passion is on the technical SEO side and paid search because both are easily measurable and fast, right? So I guess, it's a passion. Those are the things that I personally sort of really enjoy doing when I get to do them. I know in this interview, I've been doing this since like '99, so. I'm looking forward to getting into some of the other areas that I'm sure we'll be chatting about, dealing with crisis, which we're all sort of in the middle of, and stuff like that, and sort of the strategies involved with those. So I've been looking forward to this interview for the last few days while I knew it was coming up. So thanks for having me, and looking forward to diving in.
Well, lovely to have you, man. I mean, I have been looking forward to this as well. In fact, I kind of did some research and, had some questions in mind that I really want to, get information from you. But yeah, I mean, let's dive deep. And talking about Dave comes with 19 years of experience. He is a contributor at Search Engine Journal. He also does a podcast. We'll come to the podcast later because I want to learn a few tips from you. But talking about COVID, how do you see that changing the SEO space?
Um, I try to view for myself, and maybe I'm lucky because our industry is a little bit different than some. But I try and view it for myself and for clients as somebody has to win. Like I hate to sound like an opportunist, but um, for people, I understand if you're sort of what we call bootstrapping it, right? Like if you have no reserves, right now is a miserable time, and there's little you can do unless you have the knowledge to do it yourself. So if you were a business owner not able to do their own SEO and no money, okay, this time sucks, right? Like, you just call a spade a spade. There's not a lot to do. Do a lot of reading, try and educate yourself, and do what you can. But for businesses that do have some revenue, that do have a dev team either and an SEO team either internally or who have agencies, I know we're working with our clients on that. Basically, the way I'm viewing it, and thankfully so are a lot of our clients, is market share is on sale, right? Everybody is cutting back everything right now. So if you're the one that doesn't, then you come out ahead. And I like to use the analogy. Well, it's not even an analogy. Just go back in history. In 1929, the Great Depression hit.
Yep.
There were two major cereal manufacturers at the time. There was Kellogg's and Post. And Post had become the sort of not dominant, but they were right on the heels of Kellogg's. They were catching up fast. They were capturing market share incredibly rapidly. The Great Depression hit. Post halved their advertising budget. Kellogg's doubled theirs. In 1933, as for American listeners will know this reference, but as FDR was sitting down to his fireside chat to sort of calm a nation deep in a depression, Kellogg's is posting 30% revenue gains and has not been not number one in market share since 1929, right? So the strategy worked. Market share went on sale. They bust into radio, start doing massive advertising, and it made them basically untouchable. And that's sort of the opportunity that I look at for a lot of people. I have a lot of peers in the SEO space they've got more time because they can't leave home. They've also lost clients. They're dropping their service rates. People are abandoning Google ads. People are abandoning Facebook ads. The clicks are cheaper, right? Like, now's your shot to grab stuff while it's cheap. And thankfully I've got a lot of clients who are taking the opportunities here. Some have left. I mean, and I don't blame them. If you don't have the money, you've got to eat first. I get that. But if you've already got that covered and you can buy that market share, and you can look 2-3 years ahead from now and go, what market share do I want 2 or 3 years from now? Right now it's on sale. So buy it now and the reward will come in a couple of years.
No, absolutely. Like you said, the clicks are cheaper. I mean, SEO will take its time. It's good to,
Yeah.
you know, have, be first in that race, but, create a pipeline for yourself if you have the money.
Well, indeed. And I mean, there's a lot of, we've got a lot of clients in travel, obviously a really, really hard hit sector right now. But at the same time, you made a great point there. SEO takes time. Like I can talk about paid search, but you turn that on and off. That's just give me 5 minutes and we've got some ads running and now you've got your visibility. SEO takes a longer time and there's so many opportunities. And I'll speak to travel here, but it applies pretty much universally. There's a lot of content and link building opportunities available for people who just think,
Right.
because you're in travel and we've got a pandemic. The content opportunities and link building opportunities are outstanding right now and from high level sources. So I mean, we can acquire links on some great places right now. So this won't repeat itself. You have opportunities that you're not going to reap the benefits for a little while, but you've got opportunities right now that you're never going to have again at this volume and speed and ease. So I think it's, I talk about travel there. It basically exists in all sectors because everything's calmed down. If you're the person producing great content, if you're the person out there building links or hiring a good link building company, you're going to get a lot more done and probably cheaper or at least faster than you'd be able to do it otherwise.
No, absolutely. I mean, following up on that, I mean, I do a lot of link building myself. And like you said, I mean, I have experienced this that, link building is faster, cheaper, and, we're able to get better links done comparatively, during these times. So, yeah, I mean, even my clients who have the money, who were investing in SEO, I told them that it's time to push the paddle on the link building side as well, because I think I can do a great job to you. And as an agency, why not pass on that value to your clients as well during these times? um,
I love that you said that. And I have nothing to really add to it other than to go, I love that you said that because I think it's important as agencies to sort of go, yeah, I have advantages right now. So let's pass some of the, okay, yes, it's okay to profit a little bit more where you can because you probably lost clients too. I'm not speaking to you
yeah.
personally, to all agencies, but yeah, if you're getting stuff done twice as fast, charge them 50%, or charge up 75% of the rate or something, right? Like give them a bit of a deal to get more done and you can take a little more profit for yourself and everybody comes out of this a winner.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Also, I think the consumer behavior also, during these times, people are home, they're consuming more content. So, a very good time to create high quality content, and then, a testing of like long form content versus visual content. I mean, I think these are times where you can actually do all of that, which, normally you're not able to.
Oh, I think that's a great point. I mean, I don't watch a lot of YouTube videos, but I've got two kids, right? I mean, they're 20 and 22, so they're in like a pretty good demographic for a lot of people, and they don't watch Netflix. I watch Netflix. They gravitate to YouTube, and the consumption there is incredibly high, right? And I don't because I watch it too much and work on it too much at work, and by the time I'm done work, I'm like, yeah, I'm done. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. There's so much media being consumed right now, and I think that's part of why the clicks are cheap because the ads are also showing way more often
Yeah.
because people are going from. I mean, I don't know the stats. I'm really looking forward to seeing the Q1 use stats when they're made available for like YouTube to go. Okay, how many hours a day did we go from 30 minutes to like 4 hours? Because that's
Right.
what I'm thinking for some people. And then all those videos still need ads. So not only do we have people pulling out of advertising, but we have this sort of the ads that are showing being spread out where one person would have taken 30 minutes. Now they might be taking, even if they only go to 40 minutes, we're still dealing with a 33% increase.
Oh.
In the number of clicks being shown every day to each person and over 7 billion people, that's a
No,
lot of clicks.
absolutely, absolutely. In fact, talking about travel, I don't remember who actually did this, but I saw ad recently uh, of a hotel. I mean, in the hotel industry where the ad was like somebody was having popcorn at home, and the content said that you stay home, stay safe, and we are here. A very beautiful ad to have your brand in people's mind, during these times, even though you're not kind of doing much business.
Well, I think you're right. I mean, that's, as far as I'm concerned, the best ad I've seen come out. Subaru's done a couple. I'm sort of collecting my favorite ads in the COVID time to sort of write a piece. Here's how to prep for next time, sort of thing. But yeah, that's my favorite ad thus far because of the strength it shows and the message of we're here in good times and bad, right?
Right.
And so you hit it. I mean, I love that you've seen that ad too, and it is absolutely my favorite.
I think that was hotel.com, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right.
I
Yeah,
remember it
and
now.
it's Captain Obvious, right? Like perfect. Everybody knows him. You could show I mean, it's one of the most recognized sort of characters in adult, sort of brand ads right now. It's sort of the Ask Jeeves of this era, right? Where it's just like, yeah, that's the thing that it is. Now, a lot of our listeners probably don't know who Ask Jeeves is. You can look it up. It's from a search engine that died about 15 years ago. But um, anyway.
Right, right. Well, Dave, talking about, doing a strategy or a marketing campaign for clients, when you sit with a client or you plan that strategy, how would you go about planning, the budget across platforms, SEO versus PPC?
That's a great point. The first thing I always look at is, well, first I look at their budget. Like, how much do they have, both for us internally, but also how much will you give to Google? I mean, I can't count the number of times I've gone to bat going, I need more money, but it's not for me. I want to give it to somebody who needs it a lot less than I do, right? But I want you to give it to Google or Zuckerberg, right? Like one of these people needs your money.
And Google wants us to be there, so many like the zero positions, Google ads. I mean,
Oh,
Google
oh,
wants us to be
absolutely.
on Google.
And it's such a funny thing. And I mean, position zero is its own thing, since they've now removed having a page one list. Well, no, having that same URL appear on page one as the featured snippet, right? And now you can't quite do that, but we can talk about that. But the first place I start is, where are you now and how fast do you need money? Is where I like to begin, because I don't want to build them a keyword or like an organic keyword strategy that is going to take 2-3 years if they have enough money in the bank to last 3 months, right? Like that's not going to work. And so that's sort of the first place to start is, okay. And I mean, I've got a client starting right now where I'm going, okay, I'm going to not earn nearly as much here, but I'm going to start you out on paid search. We're going to get that working. We're going to do some keyword testing, and we're going to put some money in the bank. Right? So let's get you earning money, because I found literally every client I've ever encountered, if I'm making you more money than I cost you, you will keep giving me more money to make you more of that more money. Right? So if I can sort of go, oh, okay, here's your paid search. It's generating enough money to pay for the organic campaign now. So you're going to level off and you're going to be even, but now I'm paying for you to get to the next stage, through this campaign, or start off with a really low level. Here's the work that your devs can be doing while I'm working on your paid search, or I'm working on these, checking, dotting the I's and crossing the T's on some of the just obvious easy wins on the organic side. And then you get into the link building side and explaining to them that this doesn't happen fast, right? Like, we're going to be doing work right now that isn't going to pay off for months, sometimes years, if it's towards the biggest keywords that they're trying to target in their industry, right? Like, your competitor has 5,000 great links and you have 8. Right? Like, it's going to take us a while, but you're a really good company. So let's come up with a keyword strategy that captures you some converting traffic. In the meantime, let's come up with a content strategy that hopefully will acquire some links by itself, right? Like just some just because it's good content and fills all the like eat category. Sort of coming up with each thing on its own, because we do have clients that are major brands. We can basically pick phrases, and as long as we do a really, really good job with it, we're going to rank for it, right? Like they're a major brand. It's sort of a gimme. Whereas we've got clients where we're fighting tooth and nail. And if we get a featured snippet, was that a good idea? Because now we lost that number 2 ranking, and was its click-through rate better? And for that phrase, did it really matter, right? Because it was informational. Did it impact conversions, or did it add to branding? So when they are looking up a conversion phrase, they saw you as a featured snippet, and now you're there for the supplemental phrase in a conversion oriented way. A lot of odd things to have to calculate into where they are.
No, absolutely. And for small businesses, it's, like pure numbers. You get the PPC going, get some, money in their bank. And also, we get to know the converting keywords, because sometimes even for SEO, it's not only keywords with volume, right? I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes the revenue keywords or value keywords are long tail. So I think, yeah, I mean, definitely for a lot of agencies working with local clients, starting off with PPC, if the client is not like uh, with deep pockets, has always worked as a good strategy.
Well, I think that's a great one. I mean, I like to use the analogy, with paid search, you can adjust like you're a speedboat. But with SEO, you're like an aircraft carrier, right? Like once this thing gets going, you better know where you're going by the end, because
Yeah.
it is really hard to make a U-turn in one of those things. And so, yeah, if you can afford to do a little light testing on paid search, yeah, it's going to cost. And I mean, I've run campaigns where we do testing, and it was never to make money, right? Like it's actually to lose money fast and find out what works,
Yeah,
stop that campaign, and move to organic.
yeah, absolutely. Get some data, I mean,
Yeah.
to get that data, you need to burn some money initially.
Yeah, exactly. But you're not going to have to turn an aircraft carrier down the road. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dave, how does your SEO process look like?
again, that does vary a little bit by the client. Generally though, the first things that we're going to be tackling are technical and getting a good solid sort of move forward on their link strategy, almost as a sort of global rule. And the reason for that is links take a long time to start carrying weight. So get started on those earlier. Certainly in the citations. And when I say links, I should actually say external signals, because I'm counting Google My Business and all that sort of stuff in
Yeah,
that bucket. And then the technical is so I can actually get a good solid feel for what is their real starting point. If their page speed is coming in at 21, their mobile experience is a nightmare, I don't really know how they rank yet. So let's get all of those, I's dotted and T's crossed, and then see where they're ranking after that. And those on-site changes tend to take hold in weeks, not
yeah,
months,
yeah.
right? So, send search console, request indexing, get it crawled, wait about a week, and you're probably going to see roughly where it is, unless you're changing internal linking structure or something like that. Even then, it's usually like 4 to 6 weeks until you, with experience, as you have, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners do as well, in sort of pushing forward, it becomes an issue of prioritization,
Yep.
right? And by that, it's funny because I mentioned link building, but in link building, I also count content creation, but not for content creation's sake, right? Where you may have to come up with a content creation strategy, because if you have a bunch of crappy content, building links is hard, right? So, and that's where, and I'm sure you've hit this as well, and probably a lot of our listeners, it can get kind of messy where I'm like, by default, I start on, as I said, start on links and technical, but then links might require some good content, because it's easier to build links in an industry built to this content. Like we've got a travel client, but they happen to get a lot of wedding stuff. Well, weddings are easy to build links to. So we built a wedding section because they host a lot of weddings in their properties and stuff. So, okay, content building was early in that process, and we built a lot of great content, and we built infographics. So now we're pushing those out as their own thing, but it was all to do link building, right?
Right.
So it does get sort of blurred at that. But once that ball is rolling, that's when we sort of circle back and go, okay, let's build the on-page content we want to rank for conversions. Sort of the conversion optimization and conversion SEO is kind of the middle ground stuff where I start with links and technical. Now we move on to the conversion queries, because we're building that strength to
Right.
know where, if I'm realizing that, oh, with the right technical, I've got queries sitting in position 11. Well, let's start there. Let's push those up, get those moved up onto the first page, get some traffic driving in there. If nothing else, you're making the client happy because they can see some progress, which is part of my job, is to keep my company doing well. Actually,
Right.
that's one of the primary ones. As a pleasant byproduct, they need to make clients' companies do well as well. And so you find your targets, move that level forward, and then okay, you come back into conversion optimization, remarketing once you actually got that traffic coming in.
No, absolutely, absolutely. Even, I believe in the same strategy where, instead of actually, let's say you have, 100 pages, instead of actually spending a lot of time on all 100 pages, like I'm talking about like to the T content wise, once you have things going on, see the pages which have value and maybe you're ranking on the 11th or 12th or the 15th position. And then, actually sit down and then actually see on page wise or content wise where, you know, um, you need to fix things. And talking about that, Dave, I mean, what is your process? I mean, what I mean to say is content wise for a particular page, what all elements, tools, competitors, I mean, how would you go about creating that content restructuring or outline for, that page, which, let's say is on the second page and now you want to focus.
There's a couple easy go-tos. I'll list some sort of my favorite ones actually because they're free. So even if somebody's sitting at home right now going, I can't invest in SEO, right? Like they've been hit by this pandemic, their business is in collapse. Here's some things you can do. Because my biggest focus on SEO right now has to do with, and I won't get into it just because it might go above some of the listeners, but is getting into entities, right? And I'm sure you're familiar with the term, but some listeners aren't, and that's okay. And we don't want to spend this entire podcast sort of talking about those. But entities at their core are based on intents. I mean, I'm loosening it, but as it relates to SEO is looking at intent. So you look at, you know, I'll use one. We don't have a client in real estate, New York, right? Okay, you've got these 5 boroughs in New York. Those are each, they would be called an entity. You can think of it, it's incorrect, but you can think of it as a noun, person, place, thing, right? So, okay, we've got Manhattan. Would a ranking page for New York real estate have the word Manhattan in it? Well, of course it would, right? Like it naturally is going to include all these. Maybe not on that page, probably on the ranking page, but if not on the ranking page, it certainly would on the site itself. So connecting all those entities, but to simplify it for an audience to go, okay, what would I do with that? Think of it as an intent, right? What are all the things I could possibly want when I'm running a query? Because I think one of the biggest lessons I had to learn, well, now I started early, so we didn't have to learn it then. We could just jam keywords in and we were good to go, and then build a network of sites and link them all together. I was a bit of a black hat in my early days, but I was an affiliate marketer, so that's
Good,
okay.
good old days, man.
It was like the Wild West, West back then. But now we have to think of it more in today's era as the user isn't mine. Right. When I, and we all have a real difficulty, myself included, in remembering that when somebody is searching for blue widgets, they're Google's user. They're not my user. Google's going to lend them to me. And if I prove that I can play nice with them and I can serve that user well, then I'm going to be rewarded for that. Right. And we won't get into whether CTR is a ranking factor or something. It's not, but it gets more complicated than that because Gary will say it's not. John will say, well, it kind of is, right? Like, and they're both right, but it's a weird sort of dichotomy there. But if we remember that it's Google's user, then what we need to do is think about what intents does that user have? So when they're searching blue widgets, they might be looking to buy blue widgets. They might be a high school student researching blue widgets. They might be a marketing student going, why does Dave Davies keep using blue widgets as a marketing example, right? Like these could be a variety of different intents. So to go to the free tools to get to the question, my favorite place to start is the search result. And you look up blue widgets. I mean, that might be a bad example. I haven't looked it up in a long time, but look up some key queries in that you would be targeting and go, okay, what are the people also asked at the bottom? Are they showing videos? That's telling me people like a variety of formats. Whether that helps your conversion is irrelevant. It's not your user. It's Google's user. So do they want video? Because I'll bet you want to be the video if they do, even if that's not how you convert people. Do they show Twitter? How's your Twitter profile looking, right? Look through the knowledge panel, find out what other entities they're referencing there. Are they showing other websites? Are they showing other people? Can you get one of those people to be an author of a piece on your site, right? Those sorts of things to sort of pull in all of the various intents onto your website and go, okay, I noticed that, and I've seen it in some results. I've got, as I say, clients in travel. And for one of their queries, I saw all the different neighborhoods down below. It wasn't New York, but they had all the different sort of towns in their area. Well, okay, revamp of the homepage now. Let's make sure we're linking to towns and the various properties they have in those towns. And sure enough, 2-position bump. And that's big because we're in that spot where, in the beginning, you want multi-page jumps. At the end, you're happy with a 1-position jump, right? When you're sort of trying to fight your way up page 1 instead of, fighting to get even onto the top 20. And so that's sort of where that started. And I mean, there's some great tools for monitoring. A lot of them get into what can be pretty pricey.
Right.
So they're not really universally applicable, but one that's a pretty low barrier to entry is SEMrush, which I do like on its ranking side for this purpose, because you can put in a bunch of competitors and go,
Right.
okay, where are they ranking? I'm going to put in all the keywords, not just that I want to target, but all the keywords about what I want to target, put them all in there, see who's ranking, look at all the keywords they're looking for, maybe use a supplemental tool like SpyFu or Ahrefs and look at all the different ranking or the keywords they're ranking for and go, okay, why does that help them rank for the keyword phrases I want to target for my conversions? Because at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. But what does that inform me about when I'm looking at what I want to rank about? And then start building that content into your existing pages. Or you might have to bite the bullet and either hire a good copywriter or build it yourself, but that's going to support your EAT anyway. So
Right.
that's all
Also,
very helpful.
what I have, found helpful in addition to this is, like you said, there are so many tools available. If you have the money, use a tool, and then, even see the top 10, for a particular keyword, the top 10 pages, the intent, but also see, along with the intent and the type of the page, whether it's an infographic or service page or, home page, but also see, obviously keeping the outliers aside, see the average word count on all those pages, see the different words, how many times they have been used. I think, like using all these strategies and it's already there, I mean, Google is already considering those 10 pages with all of that information. So, just use it smartly, and, it definitely helps, plan the content nicely.
Well, and I think that's a really, really good point. I mean, if we remember that an algorithm is math, right? I mean, like this is a mathematical formula. It doesn't favor me or you. It just happens to produce a certain set of results. You bring up number of words on a page or the instances of use of keywords. Of course, a hotly debated topic in our industry, keyword density, right? But which is funny. You can go, was there? I mean, there was once a time I could go, it's 3.5. I actually had a client and I went, okay, let's pull the top 10. And like you, I would go take the bottom and top 2 out, and then we're going to average the middle 6. And I sat down with a client and just pulled it up, gave me a phrase, and 3.49. Like it was 3.5. That's what it was. Now, it's a lot more relaxed now because Google's understanding of language has gotten more, but 0 is too low and 100 is too high. So there's going to be something in the middle that reinforces that you are relevant for a topic, whether we call it keyword density or we call it intent. It's the same kind of thing. So you're right. How are you using words? What other words would you use that would be considered synonyms or highly related? Those sort of issues are incredibly powerful. One, just to make sure we get to it, it's not really good for intent sort of stuff, but is, and I'm sure you've used it too, Screaming Frog, because you have a free version with 500 URLs. So I'd be remiss not to go, no matter what your budget, it's cheap if you want to run it, forever. It's like, I think 150 euro or something like that, or pounds. I can't remember the currency. I remember it's not US dollars,
It's
which is rare
pounds.
for my tools. It is pounds. Okay. So it just crawls sites and tells you what's broken on your site. But if you formulate that, there's a gentleman named Patrick Stocks who now works for IBM, but I don't believe he did at the time, who wrote a great article. You can look it up on Screaming Frog and a tool called Gephi. and it actually lets you map how the page rank is flowing through your site using the original page rank formulas, which are not what are being used today, but it gives you a good idea. And you can sort of pull in some of your analytic data and go, okay, and let's size these pages on my site, by the sort of traffic coming into them or whatnot, and then see how does the page rank correlate to traffic. It gets a really nice visual. As an agency person, it lets you produce some really, really neat pictures to pass off to prospective clients or clients and go, here's a really good visual of what we just accomplished for you and on the traffic and how the page rank is flowing. To help them get the buy-in on, because that's sometimes, as an agency or as an in-house SEO, that one of the biggest problems I've encountered is just getting the client to let you do your job, right? I mean, it's we have a lot of clients, and right now we're very blessed to have most of our clients will let us sort of do what we want, but that's because most of them have been with us long enough to go, okay, we know that they're not going to break stuff while we're in there. And we'll pull in some metrics using Tag Manager and go, okay, but nobody clicks that button. So I know you like that button there, but nobody clicked it, right? We can look in your analytics and see the events and go, it doesn't matter. So let's get rid of it, and improve your page rank flow through your site. But anyway, I can go off on tangents on tools forever, but I'll keep us. I know we're limited on time, so I'll keep us keep us posted.
Well, speaking about EAT, I mean, how do you leverage EAT to your advantage for SEO? I mean, best practices. It would be great if you could, spend some time on that.
Yeah, that's a great one. That was actually, it's funny because I mentioned SEMrush, and I was just on a webinar yesterday with SEMrush on EAT specifically. It was a 4-hour thing. I only did 1 hour. God, thank goodness. But EAT is incredibly powerful, and it's an area that I can measure. And I'm a more technical sort of person, so I can measure stuff, and that's what I do. My wife and business partner, thankfully, is a UX person, so this is
A
right
solid
in
combination.
yeah. So she's sort of, okay, you build pretty things and make sure people like stuff. I will just measure how that works after the fact. But so I'll be speaking about it from a more technical, pragmatic standpoint. One of the most important things about EAT, I think, for people who might not be in the SEO industry to understand is it's not an algorithm, right? Like we think of EAT as an algorithm. It's not. In fact, the reference to EAT is in the Quality Raters Guidelines by Google, which I'm about to write an article on them because I'm like, I got to read those again. It's been like a year and I should probably familiarize myself with them. But the Quality Raters Guidelines are given to human beings who are hired to judge websites by Google. Now, they don't adjust rankings, and I know you know this, but for your listeners, they don't adjust rankings. They can't impact rankings, but they can say, was this site good or bad on a scale of like basically horrible to an incredibly high value site. And that's where EAT gets defined, because they go, a very, very high value site or even a high value site will have expertise, authority, and trust. Now, what that means for an individual site, what it means for a medical query is very different than it means for a cat GIF query. But the desire at the end is to have these things. But one of the things that I think is misunderstood by people coming in who aren't SEOs, who aren't in the industry, and sort of go, okay, I know where EAT comes from. I've either read the guidelines or I've read a number of articles on them, is it's not actually a formula. It guides the formula, because then Google sends a bunch of machine learning systems over all this data and goes, okay, what looks like the ones that these raters did? So other formats of their algorithm take in the principles of EAT, but only because human beings have sat there and gone, this is what EAT looks like. Right. And so then they mathematically come in after the fact and look at what functions of that site would do that. So John Hopkins would get a good EAT for medicine, but would get a horrible score, for cat GIFs. Right. Like it just, that's how this would sort of work out. So when we go in, we can look at expertise. The unique thing about expertise is it deals with the content creator only. That specific piece for that specific query, that ranking page. It's A and T both relate to the site as a whole, but the E only relates to that one piece and the one content creator. Now, whether that content creator is IBM as an entity or Dave Davies as a human being, author on, you mentioned it earlier, Search Engine Journal, right? Like that expertise is put to that specific piece. And for expertise, you would basically look at how knowledgeable is this person based on all of the different factors. How knowledgeable is Dave on SEO? Well, we'll look at the other places we see Dave Davies. Now, unfortunately, I got the singer of the Kinks also competing for my name. Hopefully they can figure us out. And the A and the T both relate to the site as a larger sort of whole. So understanding, and there's a lot of blur between all those aspects, right? Like you look at expertise. Well, what's the difference between expertise and trust, right? If I am an expert, I am trusted. But just because I'm trusted doesn't mean I'm an expert, right? Like you can get those individual things, but some of the things they list specifically to use as an example, but it's hard to say, here's what you should do, because expertise is different for cat gifts than it is for medical information, your money or your life sites,
Yeah.
those type of things. But some examples would be, if you're an expert in an area, do you have multiple places that are published? Right.
Yeah.
It would be a good, like for me, that would be a thing that I would look at. Do I publish in a number of places? That's going to reinforce my name, right? Do I get a knowledge panel? I don't worry about it for me because that Kinks guy gets it for my name. And yes, he is more notable than I am, and that gets into different entity patents that they've going. Okay, notability is a factor. Prizes are a factor. Did you win the Pulitzer Prize? Then your entity as an author goes up. But one of the specific examples they give is numbers of reviews.
Right.
Are a factor in EAT. Doesn't mean spam your reviews, because that's actually written in there. People spam reviews. Better Business Bureau listing is also counted. Doesn't mean go out and jam it up, because in that reference, they only look at bad. They've sort of gone, we don't look at good, but we do look at bad. If you have bad, then that's a clear signal that you're bad, but it doesn't, good is just sort of a default. You sort of get an A out of the gate. So if you had a lot of reviews and feedback there, though, and it was sort of, you'd done your job to maintain things, good. To look at EAT and sort of go, am I doing my job? There's specific things that I would look at. I would look at my analytics and go, when I write a piece of content, don't worry too much about how many people are visiting it, especially early on, right? Like later on, you should worry about how many people are visiting it, but early on, not a lot of people. But are they doing, when they enter at that piece of content, maybe run a paid campaign and land people on that content and go, do they do what I expect them to do? Do they do what they should be doing? If they do something better, awesome. If they do something worse, now you need to revisit that, because you're clearly, it isn't a signal Google would use, but clearly you're not fulfilling EAT, because otherwise they'd be doing what you should think they should do. And that doesn't mean convert on your site. It means engage with that content in the way that they should be engaging with your content. Look at your social shares. Social shares are not a ranking factor, but if a lot of people are sharing it, you are probably passing yourself off as an expert in a field properly, right? And I don't mean passing off dismissively or judgmentally. I mean, you are probably engaging properly with your target audience. Now, Google's not looking at that specifically, but it is a signal that you're doing what you're supposed to do. Does it acquire links naturally, or is it easier to link build to if you're trying to manually do it? Then that's okay. The links are a signal, but that you can link build easier isn't a signal, but it is a sign that this content is fulfilling all of those criteria, because people are wanting to link to it more readily. So it has that trust. You are obviously being an expert in that, and you're obviously authoritative. The easier something is to link build to, the more EAT you probably have, even though the links don't give you the EAT directly until they start to, right? And you look at, okay, if you're starting to get links from like CNET or something, and I'm speaking on a technical site, or you're referenced on like a Stack Exchange as the best answer for a highly technical problem, yeah, okay, you're probably getting some some EAT score passed you through that. But just your general out of the gate link building wouldn't pass it directly, but it would be a sign that you already have it, and that's why it's easier.
No, absolutely. I mean, adding to what you said, I mean, we can go on and on EAT, but just to kind of, uh, you know, finishing the discussion here, two things which I would want to add. One is, it also is a signal to promote people to sell and rank on what they are actually good at. Everybody cannot be good at everything. And then it also helps in earning high quality links. I mean, it's directly related to good link building as well. So definitely, I think focusing on EAT will show some good value moving forward.
Yeah, I love it. This is one of my, and you hit them every now and then in SEO, and it's one of my favorite things because, like EAT, because if you're striving to be an expert, authoritative, and trusted, even if you get no SEO benefit, you win, right? Like it's just one of those great things. It's like, okay, then you've just produced the best possible result for nothing. You've just tried to make content that doesn't bounce on your site for nothing. Well, for nothing, no, it's not bouncing anymore, right? Like either way, you've impacted a positive, or you've imparted a positive UX experience, even if you haven't got that direct SEO signal you might have been building it for, you've still won on the user side. So it's, even when you're wrong, you win. And so that's what I love about EAT work.
Right, right. Also, Dave, how do you see the new image license meta tag affect image search?
They're doing a lot of work in image search right now.
Yeah, I think they want us
They're
to
doing
shift. They want us to shift to that image section of.
They do, and I mean their announcement yesterday as well that they're going to be allowing free product into shopping results, which I'm not sharing with too many people, but I'll share it with your listeners. I'm just hoping a lot of people miss that announcement because my clients can now sneak in there a lot cheaper. Obviously paid still at the top, but I think for some people these things are important. For some people they're not. Right? Like I've got clients that I look at image search and go, it's kind of irrelevant for you. I mean, if we have it, we won't complain. But at the end of the day, it doesn't affect your bottom line. I don't think ranking on image search is going to help them rank for their conversion terms on the organic, sort of traditional search side. So for most clients, I think it's not a big deal. Like especially when you get into metadata. Yeah, okay, putting your keywords on your images and stuff, that can directly affect your SEO. But otherwise, I don't think for a lot of clients it's bad. But if I was iStock Photo or Adobe Stock or a cat GIF website, would I? Oh yeah, and it will have a lot of power. People undervalue all metadata schema, like in what I generally for clients, I'm like JSON schema, but it's heavily undervalued. I'm sure you've got a lot of experience with. We were talking about featured snippets earlier. You want those featured snippets, right? You want some drop downs on an FAQ page built right into those search results. This is where you do it, right? Get that how-to schema in there. My two favorites on the topic of schema, but then we'll get back onto images, is the FAQ and how-to. I just love them so much. They are so powerful, and they actually directly change the SERP results.
I love FAQs also. I mean, all my recent landing pages have like a big FAQ section at the bottom.
Yeah, and it just isn't great. And it's just like, and there I appear, and I get some little drop down. So now my search result is this big, not this big, right? It's great. But and again, and you could put emojis it. Well, you could, you can't now, but you could. Well, now you can, but it's really finicky. But anyway, back to image search. I think metadata is one of the unsung heroes. But you need to think about. I mean, being a technical SEO as a big part of my job, I could follow these, breadcrumbs forever, right? Like there's so much stuff you can do on any given website. You can amp up the metadata on every element of your page pretty much now, right? Like Google just can, by the time something new comes along, they'll, by the time you're done one, they'll have added a new thing and you could start again and do it. So you really need to think about what are your business goals and where are your traffic sources. Do you want to be in news or not? Right? Like, those sorts of things that actually matter. I do. So we are, but it doesn't really matter for a lot of our clients, right? I've got a client with a great travel blog. Does he need to be in news? No. Does he need to rank in the organic results for stuff about his area? Yes. So that's been the focus there. So I think as long as we think specifically about what we want, you bring a great example of yourself. Do you? Yep. I use FAQ schema as well. And the how-to schema for different clients or more sort of paragraph or structured, ordered things where you might use a recipe, but it's not food. These are the sorts of environments, because we're technical, that we naturally, we have a lot of questions that are like that. But, for travel, not as much on some, but on questions about the area, yes. So we use them heavily in the blog, not so much on the actual site itself, right? On the main part of the site itself. So I think each person needs to think about what's important for them and where do they need to be and where I know I said it's not about your converting audience. It's about sort of Google getting a conversion, but you can think about where your converting audience is and go, I don't need to be an image. I don't need to be in video. I just need to be here. Now, if they have videos in the organic results, you probably need to be in video, but that's only because you want to be on that page, because Google isn't crossing their judgment like that. They're not going, when they think a user wants video, that they know because a user clicked video. Otherwise, the whole search result page, main search result page would be video, right? Like if they really were very confident, that's what they do on YouTube. So think about where your audience is searching that's going to convert, and then just do the best job of providing the answer that Google wants, and not just for your conversion, but we got back into intents and going, what are all the things that that person could want that is searching, not that I want them to do, but that that searcher could want, and make sure you're answering that on your page.
Absolutely. And the more you answer that, the smaller your sales cycle is. I mean, if you have like, and, something related to e-com, let's say, I talked about FAQs in my example. So let's say I'm promoting my link building page and I have some packages. If I'm able to, through that page, if I'm able to answer most of the questions, that my client would have, he might not even give me a phone call, just, book one package, and, you know, I just
Right.
wake up in the morning and I have one converted client, and then I welcome him on board, and rather than trying to call him again and again and trying to convert him.
Oh yeah, I mean, as with any e-com site, the shorter that sales funnel is, like the best call is, what payment methods do you take, right? Like if you're starting with, then you fulfilled EAT across the board and provided a lot of useful information. Or if you wake up and it's like, well, look at me, I have money, right? Like that's great. Yeah, and the more questions you have to answer, well, I mean, questions are great, right? I mean, and I jot down those questions on phone calls and go, well, I guess I needed to answer that on my site.
Right.
And I know a lot of people rely on just, we were talking about FAQ. A lot of people rely on their FAQ page. I think that's a incorrect way of looking at it. I'm not saying don't have an FAQ page, but if you have to have an FAQ page, it's probably because you're being asked those questions. Why don't you look at where those users started, where you want to land them at, and answer that somewhere between those 2 points? Because they're probably not going to go to your FAQ page. And if they do, they're going to have to funnel through like 20, 30, 40 FAQs. They probably don't want to do that. So just answer the question that they have somewhere between these 2 points, and try and do it in a way that just gets them the information they want, which is great because you don't want to have your FAQ section on every page. So just answer the question. Here's the payment methods we take, right? Like that's
Uh,
easy enough.
That's a beautiful point. You're absolutely correct. Talking about e-com, this is a question which a lot of clients have asked me. Like I have my own take on it, but it would be great if you kind of tell us your thoughts about it. The hidden text normally behind the read more button, right? I mean, SEO value as compared to the text which is visible above it.
Yeah, that's an awesome question, and one of my favorites. And I'd mentioned earlier, I got my start as affiliate marketing. I mean, I was back in the days of, and this content is 3,000 pixels to the left, right? Like just to get it right off the page. But we're not doing that anymore. We're talking about hidden content, and Google's gotten. I mentioned that sort of spam technique because that's what hurt hidden content. Was Google's systems were not sophisticated enough through the 2000s to understand what that was, right? Where am I trying to hide it? But now they can render pages, right? So they can actually see, oh, here's what it is. Here's that great big red button. And that great big red button produces this great big, sort of block of text that pops up. And it moved one step further when they went, oh, and now everything's being judged by mobile. Well, mobile can't have all the same content as the desktop in most cases, especially e-com, right? Like you're going to use, if nothing else, accordions, right? Because you're going to go, okay, I don't want somebody to have to scroll just to get to the reviews if they just want to see the reviews. So you're going to have jump points and stuff like that. So fortunately, there's a pretty solid answer to that exact question. John Mueller of Google was asked, their webmaster trends analyst, for listeners in the crowd who don't know who he is, pay attention to his Hangouts. Or Barry Schwartz, who writes up about them, rated up about them quite well. He had actually answered that question and said, on mobile, this is necessary, right? You're not going to be punished for it. But if this content isn't meant to be read, then it won't be credited, right? Like, which makes perfect sense. If you're doing it just to hide content on your page, then it's clearly going to be devalued. If it's meant to be clicked and users meant to engage with it, and that probably would transition over to the desktop version of your site. You go, oh, okay, it's visible over there. It's hidden here, but it's really easy to access because it's in an accordion. Then it's going to count the same because you're doing it for your mobile experience. And if they haven't hammered it into users yet, they want you to make a good mobile site. Like that's what they want, is for your users to love your mobile experience. So yeah, they've it's okay to do, just make sure it's easy to find.
Right. Talking about link building, we'll try to maybe cover a couple of points in link building before we wrap up for today. Uh, you know, Low DA sites. I mean, as an agency, I still have to have those packages out there to
Mm-hmm.
compete. But still talking about the value of low DA sites. DA 10, DA 20. I mean, what value, SEO value, do they actually have?
That's good. I mean, it depends. It's a good question. And we'll use DA like for our listening audience as a placeholder. It's good. You're right. Like it's commonly used. It's one of the metrics that we sort of have to fall back on since they took away the page rank toolbar. And so yeah, we use DA as a sort of placeholder for value. I tend not to look at it as much. I mean, DA is what page rank was back in the day, I guess, before. I think it was 2016 when they took that bar away, but I might be wrong. If we sort of go back to then, it was sort of we use it as a value metric, but at the end of the day, the value metric is clear to see. Look at the site. Like what is that site looking like? And what is the purpose? Do I need anchor text reinforcement? Do I need anchor text diversity?
Yeah.
Because lower DA sites tend to fall into two camps. One is they're new, right? I mean, everybody started at a zero. Right? Like that's just the way of it. We all had it might not have launched as a one-page site, but we all had a site with no links at one point. Yeah. Like everybody did. So you got to sort of move forward from there. So it may fall into that camp, or it might just be that it doesn't have a lot of links. Right? It doesn't have something to build up that domain authority. That doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad. There's a variety of reasons for it. It might be in a small niche. Like, what if it's about, a site dedicated to enthusiasts of bats who want to go and find all the great bat caves? I haven't looked this up specifically, but I'm guessing that's a small grouping of people. But it's probably a fairly tight-knit group of people, right? Because they're going to link amongst themselves and probably share a lot of information. I'm just trying to pick the most obscure thing I could possibly think of. So that's apparently what crosses into my brain. I don't know why. But those would remain fairly low DA. But not because they're bad. They would have a high, provided they're done right, they would have a high EAT score for the topic of bat tours, right? But they wouldn't have a high DA. So you have to look at each thing unto itself. And on a global, if you're just in a normal competition, if you're an SEO or something like that, you would look at them and go, what's my purpose here? Do I want anchor text diversity? Do I want, and it also depends on, am I doing link building, or am I for my own site, or am I buying them, right? To look at what is your purpose on these things, and then just review the sites and go, at the end of the day, does the link make sense? Am I building it into the content right? And does it fit the theme of the site? Remembering that the A and the T are a site-wide. Now, not algorithmically perfect, but we know clearly that's how Google's assigning this stuff. So does this site relate to travel? It might be a DA 15 because it's only about this one little town, but so is my cottage that I'm trying to rent out. So that it works that way. So DA isn't a perfect score because it views that little bat tour site on the same scale as it views Wikipedia, and they're just not in the same competition, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So, nor should they be.
Absolutely. Something like a motocross versus, normal, a website which has uh, vehicles, motorcycles. I mean, a typical motocross website, might have low DA, but, it actually has the exact relevancy for a motocross client. And sometimes those sites are more difficult to earn as compared to the high DA sites, So that is why that link might be more expensive as compared to a high DA site. So you got to understand that. But I mean, as an agency, it sometimes gets difficult to explain your clients that. But definitely what you makes what you said makes sense, and I can completely relate to it. Well, Dave, link building is my favorite topic. I mean, I love playing with links, content, and I wish we had more time, but definitely maybe that can be a separate discussion some other time. I can get hold of you and we can talk about it. But still, before you go, one last question which just came up to me, which I would want you to answer, and it is a popular one as well. I mean, is it okay to buy a lot of domains and do a 301 redirect to your main one?
It depends on your purpose on that one, and that's a great question. It depends why. I own a lot of domains, right? I mean, and a lot of them are just for brand protection, and so I own them, or for I don't want a competitor to have this domain and it happened to be available, so I bought it. Organic-SEO.com, right? Like it just redirects to our homepage. I don't use it, but I also don't want a competitor to have it, right? Because it's a good domain. But I don't want to rebuild my site. For those ones, yes, I wasn't buying them to try and augment links. So Google doesn't really care. It doesn't add any value to my domain. Or it's not an attempt to attract value to my domain. It's just to make sure that if somebody accidentally searches this, they're going to either end up at my domain or, beanstalksucks.com, right? Like can't remember if I bought that one or not, but now that I've said it, I probably should if I haven't, because I can see some smart aleck doing that now. But, those sorts of things, those are fine. But if you're trying to go out and buy linked to domains just to try and, sort of boost your rankings, that sort of leads to two problems. One, there's a good chance Google will probably know, right? That's just, they're a registrar, right? Like they know the buy and sell and change history of these sorts of things. So they're probably going to know. And then the second, and I have bought domains with backlink profiles, and there's a very good chance, like look really close if you're planning on doing that. And then maybe you want to do it to like launch a new site at with, sort of a kickstart, at least in crawlability, because it has some links coming in. Maybe that's what you want to buy it for. If you're purchasing it for that, if it had a lot of links, it was probably successful in what it was doing. And yet it's on the market again. So what were those links, right? Like, did this site get a manual action against it because those links were horrible? And then the person was just like, well, I'm just going to I'm not going to pay the renewal fee on this because the domain isn't worth it. Like, there's a lot of dangers in it. But speaking as somebody who has bought somewhere, I'm like, oh, that's like a government agency. They're probably going to hit the snooze button on this renewal. Let's just put a back order on that. There are opportunities there. And if you are going to point it to your domain, probably don't jam them all to your homepage. This is just a best practice. It probably violates every Google guideline on the planet. But if I won't say I've done this, but if I was to do this, build a section that would relate, that would fulfill the original user's intent. So if they're following those links, they're going to land at a place that satisfies what they wanted when they got there, right? So it should matter for your site. It should be a logical thing for your site, or why are you doing this to begin with? And if you build that content and you satisfy those users, whether those natural sort of pre-existing links count or not, you're probably going to start to acquire some new ones.
Right, right. Well, Dave, thank you so much, for your
Well, thank
time
you.
today. It was fun. I wish we had more time, but definitely, this gives us an opportunity to do this again next time. You take care and have a good day, man.
Thanks, you too.
Bye bye.
Bye.